For 18.4, practice time to the hour and half hour. All right, for the first problem, it says Barbara goes to the store at 8 o'clock. Find the clock that shows 8 o'clock. So if it's pointing at 8, the hour hand has to be pointing at 8, and the minute hand has to be pointing at the 12. This clock right here is pointing at the 6, and it's in between the 9 and the 8, so that means this clock is 8:30. But this clock right here is 8 o'clock. Alright, the second problem is Barbara takes Ria for a walk at 1:30. Circle the clock that shows 1:30. Let's look at each of the clocks. This clock is pointing, the hour hand's pointing at the 12, and the minute hand's pointing at the 12, so that makes it 12 o'clock. This clock, the hour hand is pointing at the 1, and the minute hand is pointing at the 12, which makes it 1 o'clock. And this one, the hour hand is in between the 1 and the 2, and the minute hand is pointing at the 6, so that makes it 1:30. So this clock is 1:30. Okay, where should you draw the minute hand to show the time? Okay, so we're going to be drawing the minute hand in order to show the time. The minute hand is the long hand. So it says 9 o'clock. So if it's pointing at 9 o'clock, if it's 9 o'clock, then the minute hand is pointing at the 12. If it's 9:30, then the hour hand is in between the 9 and the 10, and the minute hand points to the 6 because that signals the half hour mark. Use the hour hand to write the time, write the minute hand. All right, this is 4, so it's pointing to 4 o'clock. So we write 4 o'clock. All right, number 2. This hour hand is in between the 11 and the 12, so that makes it 11:30. Okay, number 3. The minute hand or the hour hand is in between the 6 and the 7, so that makes it 6 something. And then we're going to draw them. Oops. Let me erase that. Okay. The minute hand is going to go to the 6, which makes it 6:30. All right, number 4. The hour hand is pointing at the 7, so that makes it 7 o'clock. All right, number 5. We have the hour hand pointing at the 2. We're going to make the minute hand point at the 12, which makes it 2 o'clock. Okay, number 6. The hour hand is in between the 3 and the 4, so that makes it 3:30. We're going to draw the minute hand to point to the 30, so 3:30. All right, use the hour hand to write the time, draw the minute hand. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. All right, so the hour hand is in between the 10 and the 11, so we're going to draw the minute hand to the 6, which signals 10:30. Okay. Number 8, the hour hand is pointing to the 12, so we're going to make the minute hand point to the 12 as well, and we're going to make it 12 o'clock. All right. Number 9, the hour hand is in between the 5 and the 6, and the minute hand is going to be pointing to the 6, so it will be 5:30. Zoe tried to show 6 o'clock. Explain how to change the clock to show 6. What is the error? All right, so currently looking at the clock, the hour hand is pointing to the 12, and the minute hand is pointing to the 6, which means 12:30. What Zoe did was she mixed up the hands of the clock, and what really needs to be happening is the hour hand needs to be pointing at the 6, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at the 12. So she just flipped the two. So if you could explain that and write that down, that would be great. Okay, number 11. Actually, on number 10, you should write down that Zoe switched the hands of the clock. Number 11. Brandon has lunch at 1 o'clock. Which number does the hour hand point to? Draw the hour hand. Which number does the minute hand point to? Draw the minute hand. All right, so he has lunch at 1 o'clock. So then the hour hand is going to be pointing to 1, and the minute hand is going to be pointing to 12. So you have the clock, which is 1 o'clock. All right, daily assessment test. Choose the correct answer. Number 12. Sophia and Alana go for a ride at 4 o'clock. Which clock shows 4 o'clock? So you'll need to find which clock shows 4 o'clock. The hour hand needs to point at 4, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at 12. What time is shown on the clock number 13? So you look at the clock, you see that the hour hand is in between the 1 and the 2, and the minute hand is pointing at the 6. So which time is that? Number 14. Mary Beth draws the clock to show 6:30. What number tells where the minute hand should point? Explain how you know. Okay, so the minute hand should be pointing at what if it's 6:30? If it's 6:30, the minute hand should be pointing at the 6, and that's how you know. You know that because the minute hand is the longer hand, and 6 represents 30. All right, number 15. Which clock shows 11:30? All right, so you need to, the minute hand needs to be pointing at the 11, or in between the 11 and 12, and the hour hand needs to be pointing between the 11 and 12, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at the 6. All right, use the hour hand to write the time, draw the minute hand. All right, so if it's in between a number, then it's going to be 30. If it's on the number, it's going to be o'clock. All right, so this is in between the 12 and the 1, so it's going to be 12. And if it's in between, it's going to be 30, so it's 12:30. All right, this one's pointing to the 5, so we'll put it towards the o'clock. So it's 5 o'clock. This one is in between the 7 and the 8, so that's going to be 7. And we're going to point to the 30, so 7:30. Let me make that a 3. All right, Russ tried to show 9:30. Explain how to change the clock to 9:30. All right, so he has the hour hand at 6 and the minute hand in between the 9 and the 10. What he really needs is the hour hand to be pointing at the 9 and the minute hand to be pointing at the, or pointing in between the 9 and the 10, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at the 6. So in order to write your explanation, you need to write down that Russ needs to change the hands of the clock. He confused the minute hand and the hour hand, and that the hour hand needs to be pointing between the 9 and the 10, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at the 6, which means 30. All right, lesson check. Gina and Sean go to the movies at 7 o'clock. Which clock shows 7? So the hour hand needs to be pointing at 7, and the minute hand needs to be pointing at 12. So find the clock that matches that. Number 6, what time is shown on the clock? There is a hour hand in between 9 and 10, and a minute hand at the 6. So which time is that? Number 7, which clock shows 2:30? So looking at the clock, you would look for the hour hand in between the 1 and the 2, and you would look for the minute hand at the 6. Number 8, Lizzie draws the clock to show 4:30. What number tells where the minute hand should point? So if it's 4:30, where should the minute hand point? It should point at the 6. Good job. All right, your Module 18 assessment is coming up. I want you guys to take that on a different day, and then take your Unit 4 assessment on a different day. So you'll do this lesson, then the next day you'll take your Module 18 assessment, and then the next day you'll take your Unit 4 assessment. I want you to do them on different days. That way your brains don't get tired. All right.